So the jury.
Not for the state, Your Honor.
All right, let's bring jurors, please.
Thank you. So, Mr. Hahn, we left off that night. Everybody goes to bed. The 14th, Sunday the 14th.
Yes, sir.
And I know you already testified to that. That was the day you were supposed to have left. You stayed around to accommodate Mr. Broyhill coming back to town to get all this stuff done, and because you've rescheduled the meeting for the next day.
Jamie had rescheduled the meeting, yes, sir.
Right. And I apologize when I say you, I sort of collectively mean what was going on, because the two of you were trying to schedule your time to go.
Yes, sir.
And you testified that morning came, the first thing was the meeting before Duke.
Yes, sir.
You drove them there, dropped them off, and went and did some things with the car, I think.
I didn't drive them to the meeting, sir.
Oh, you didn't take them there? Oh, did they go on their own?
I already testified to that, yes, sir.
I might have forgotten, that's why I'm asking.
Yes, sir, they drove on their
So
own.
they went in their own vehicle,
Yes, sir.
and you went, and you went and got the car serviced.
Yes, sir.
I was under the impression that you dropped them off and got the car serviced.
No, sir.
They went in their own vehicle.
Yes, sir.
You went and got the car serviced. I think you picked up some donuts or something somewhere.
Yes, sir.
Good place, by the way. And then you went, I guess, got the car serviced, and then went back home and met them there then.
Yes, sir.
And based upon all appearances, seemed like the meeting went off okay. Nobody was saying we can't leave, right?
No, sir.
Which, if that was something Jamie would have had to have done to get this report done, if there was like something that came out of the meeting at John Wallace that said, you know, we can't leave right now, we got to get this thing done, that would have been something she would have done, right?
Yes, sir.
But it wasn't. So
No,
it
sir.
was, we're squared, we're good, we're free to go on our trip
That was my impression. Yes, sir.
for that part. And you were only going to Emerald Isle, you're only going to be a few hours away. If something did pop up, you could come back.
Yes, sir.
And you were borrowing the house, so it wasn't like you were going to be out any money on it.
Yes, sir.
And as we've said over and over, you two are electronically connected. Then there's a lot of stuff you can do remotely, right?
Yes, sir.
So then you meet at the house and then you go to Duke.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I think you said whatever knowledge you had about pancreatic cancer, you and Jamie, was what you were able to pull up in the short number of days you had on the internet, right?
Yes, sir.
You'd never had to deal with anybody personally that's had that type of disease or anything.
No, sir.
I know. I asked. I remember there was that one trip you went home and your grandfather was in hospice, so I didn't know if you've had any personal dealings with something like that.
He had, I believe, lung cancer that had spread, sir.
But I didn't know if you involved. You might have been at that stage in your life with the day-to-day stuff that would have needed to be done at the doctor's offices.
No, sir.
Yeah, probably not anything.
No, sir.
Probably never had to do that before, right?
Jamie and I had helped take care of my grandmother who had colon cancer. When she was coming to Duke, sir.
Did you do the doctor's appointments and things like
On
that?
occasion, yes, sir.
Okay. So, and John had just told you that this was just, he'd just been diagnosed the week before with this thing. Of course, that's what he's telling you.
Yes, sir.
So had you been to Duke before?
With my grandmother, yes, sir.
Okay, same place.
Yes, sir.
So you went to the right clinic. I mean, it seemed like the right place to go, right?
Yes, sir.
And he's putting you in the waiting room and said, just, wait here and I'll go see what I got to do and I'll be back, right?
Yes, sir.
There was nothing, prior to having this bombshell laid on you that he had cancer, that's a change. But, nothing seemed out of the ordinary for what you expected to do.
Yes, sir.
This is the place to go. This is the place to wait. And, of course, it's one of his initial meetings. You have no idea how long a doctor's appointment would be for something like that.
Correct, sir.
So you're waiting and patiently, and patiently, not impatiently. You and Jamie were just being patient and waiting until he came out.
Yes, sir.
So by the time he came out, you drove back home to your house, right?
Yes, sir.
And his car was there.
Yes, sir.
The plan was, well, you went and got lunch.
Yes, sir.
Now we're good to go. We can leave for the beach. There was nothing, John Wallace, Brad Miller stuff, John's cancer stuff. Finally, you got things buttoned down to a point where you felt you guys could leave.
Yes, sir.
Now, there's been some testimony about this debt collector from Time Warner Cable. And were you in here when he testified?
I was, sir.
Okay. And about him calling her and saying that the check had bounced, that she had sent from the Brad Miller campaign account to pay for the $500 and some bill, right?
We were in the Costco parking lot getting gas, and I believe that she got a message to call him, and then she called him. But I can't recall exactly, but yes, sir.
That certainly was nothing that was going to cause either of you to stop the car and say, hey, we got to go back and check and see what's going on with that.
Jamie's assumption or belief, I guess I should say belief, was that there was plenty of money in the account, so it seemed to be some error of some part.
Beck, you recall telling officers who asked you about that Jamie didn't seem too concerned about it all. In fact, she thought it could be some kind of a scam.
Yes, sir.
So that wasn't a big issue in anybody's mind.
No, sir.
Wednesday came, and Jamie got copied on the email. Well, she got sent an email from John Wallace, she and John, the one that you heard. Were you here for Mr. Wallace's testimony about that?
I was here for a portion of it, yes, sir.
Okay, where he was, and you know what I'm talking about, where he sent the help email.
Yes, sir. I was told about it. Jamie relayed that to me that day.
Sure. And you weren't totally surprised by what he was discovering, because you had looked on the FEC website that Sunday night when you were doing the e-chat with Jamie, and some of the stuff because he attached the letters, right?
I don't know, sir.
Oh, you didn't
that was
look?
the testimony the other day, yes, sir.
Okay. Did you look at the emails when she got them? Did she
No,
say,
sir.
here, Nation, take a look at this?
No, sir.
Okay. But you had looked at the website. You knew about, there was at least, said in the e-chat about the one letter.
Yes,
right?
sir.
And, but this too was not something that, Jamie's saying, we got to pack up and go back to Raleigh and go deal with this. It wasn't that type of a thing, was it?
As indicated by the chat from Sunday night that we testified about, she believed that he had, in fact, sent her confirmation of the facts that it happened.
So in her mind, it was like, this is just, John will get it squared away. He'll get up with John and he'll get it figured out. And
Yeah, I mean, she believed that it would be squared away. Yes, sir.
certainly wasn't anything to start packing the bags and head back to Raleigh.
No, sir.
And she was getting copied on everything. I mean, John replied the next day and copied her on it, right?
That was the testimony. Yes, sir. I'm not sure that I was aware of it at the time.
Now, she asked, and I think you testified with this, she did ask him and say, well, John, why don't you bring the stuff with you? We'll take a look at it at the beach on Friday, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when he got, I guess you and Jamie had made some kind of arrangements with the animals back home in Raleigh, just so that John could come and join you guys for the weekend, right?
Yes, sir.
And not just John, you testified, there was a whole group of people that were coming out, joining you guys to help celebrate your anniversary and your birthday.
Yes, sir.
So, Jamie had asked John to bring the stuff on Friday, but when he didn't, it didn't create in her mind any sense of urgency, like, oh, geez, you didn't bring the stuff, I got to go back to Raleigh and get it, or anything like that.
I don't even remember discussing it over that weekend, sir.
So it wasn't even that big of a deal.
I don't remember discussing it that weekend, sir.
Okay. And I believe you said that the weekend went off, pretty much good time had by all.
Yes, sir.
You get back to the house Sunday night.
Yes, sir.
You're inviting everybody on over. Hey, who wants to come on over? We'll have a cookout at your house, right?
Yes, sir.
Even when John said, I'm going to take a pass, did not seem out of the ordinary under the circumstances of him having just,
No, sir.
told you he'd gotten cancer. You didn't take anything from that.
No, sir.
And Jamie had said, when we get on Friday, when he didn't bring the stuff, well, we'll just handle it when we get back in town,
Yes, sir.
which was Monday.
Yes, sir.
And Monday was a logical day to get together because you testified a little bit about this. Monday was sort of a ritual thing for, I think you said you sort of got dragged into it with Jamie and John, where they watched was it Dancing with the Stars or The Bachelor or something like that? And you usually eat something before the show or during the show, I don't know. But it sounds like you're always home on Monday nights watching the TV show.
Most often.
So the plan was just come on over around dinner time. We'll wrap up the things that John's asking about, and then we'll have dinner and watch the show.
Yeah, her plan was to, they were supposed to meet during the workday, I believe. And yes, of course, it would then proceed into the normal Monday night.
So when you came home that day and saw him there, and see Jamie at the desk, and she's on the phone, by all appearances, everything seemed absolutely okay and normal.
Yes, sir.
Jamie's on the phone. There didn't appear to be any problem between her and John.
No, sir.
He wasn't complaining about anything to you.
No, sir.
He just greeted you. Jamie's on the phone, but she wasn't. You didn't describe seeing her with some like angry look or something like that.
No, sir.
You went to New Kind that day, right?
I had, yes, sir.
You didn't get any of the E-chats or G-chats saying, hey, I found this or I
No,
saw
sir.
this. Nothing like that.
No, sir.
Nothing like that Sunday night, the 14th, where she chatted you and
No, sir.
said, hey, I just found this in the records or nothing like that.
No, sir.
We won't do the event because we've done that.
Thank you.
But when you got done with, when you got to the Harrells,
Yes, sir.
and you didn't know them prior to that day,
No, sir. Jamie and I had stopped at their little girl's lemonade stand at least once.
the lady said something about that.
Yes, sir.
And I think for their kindness, you guys invited them to, I think, there was something about a memorial service for Jamie. They were, or something, the family event, something that they were invited to come.
I'm sure they were, sir.
But when you were over at the Harrells
Yes, sir.
and talking to Jamie about, and telling her, I mean, you knew she was seriously injured. You could see that.
Yes, sir.
And a number of people said were frantic and upset, and you were.
Of course.
But you did ask her on number K what happened. She never said anything about what happened or why this happened, did she?
Not that I recall, sir.
There were a number of, like the services that, or one of the things, you mentioned something about, there were a number of memorial services for Jamie after this happened, right?
Yes, sir.
A lot of people whose lives she touched expressed their sympathy for her loss, right?
Yes, sir.
Some of them were some of these people in politics that she had worked with or been connected to somehow, correct?
Yes, sir.
I think Congressman Price, his wife, who she'd worked with the wife before, I think expressed sympathy or even attended one of the services.
Yes, sir.
And a number of different people. There, you, to your credit, and I probably not through your own thinking about it because you had so much on your head, but there was some discussion to use the outpouring of sympathy for her to do something with it. And you've created a foundation for her, haven't you?
We have, yes, sir.
And that does a lot of not-for-profit charitable work for the area, right?
Yes, sir.
In her name.
Yes, sir.
And you've continued that.
Yes, sir.
So, applaud you for that, sir. I'm gonna take a minute to talk to Ms. Elliott. And
Yes, sir.
I'll let you know if I have any. Mr. Hahn, thank you very much for answering my questions.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Hahn, in 2000, some random questions for you. In 2013, was money provided to the defendant from you or Jamie for work?
Yes, sir.
Just tell us a little bit about that.
The arrangement with the Miller campaign moving forward was, I believe, $1,000 every 3 months to do the report, the quarterly report. I know that at some point Jamie compensated the defendant maybe $500.
Who is Elaine Martin?
She worked with, she was on the board of Equality North Carolina, was a friend of Mr. Broyhill's.
Friend of the defense, okay. And Crystal Jones, Crystal with a K, Crystal Jones, who's that?
She was also a friend of the defendant.
Okay. The boarding Rosie at the vet on, was it Friday the 19th, before the defendant was coming to Emerald Isle to join y'all?
Yes, sir.
You provided your credit card number to him at that time?
As I've said before, I don't recall if I provided it to him or to the person at the vet, but either way, he called early Friday morning requesting the credit card number, or said that he needed a credit card number to pay for a deposit, sir.
Did you at any other time give the defendant permission or authorization to use your credit card?
No, sir.
Now approach the witness, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
was marked as State's Exhibit 98.
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize what State's Exhibit 98 is?
Yes, sir.
Tell us what State's Exhibit 98 is, please.
It is an email from myself to the defendant, and then an email from the defendant back to me about his trip to the beach.
Does it begin with Friday, April 12th, Jonathan Broyhill writing you an explanation of the LabCorp firing, and he's at the beach,
Yes, sir.
and responses that go back and forth between you two following that?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, this time the state will move into evidence State's Exhibit 98.
Any objection?
Give me a moment, Jerry.
Allowed.
It's time for the state to publish State's Exhibit 98 to the jury.
All right, both. Mr. Fawcett, will you be directing our attention to where you want the jury to focus? Or do you want the jurors to review it before?
Review the document, Your Honor.
You want them to review it before you ask further questions?
Just, yes. on his Friday, April 12th, 11:35 response to indicate that he knew he was cutting into you and Jamie's beach weekend.
He did.
He apologized.
He did.
To seeing that same response indicate that he was being incredibly selfish and doing what he'd done.
Yes, sir.
What was his? What did he say over the reason why he just needed a break?
He said he needed a break or he felt like he was going to explode.
I approach the witness, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Let me show you what's marked as States Exhibit 115. Do you recognize what States Exhibit 115 is?
Yes, sir.
What is States Exhibit 115?
It's Jamie and I taking a walk on the beach, sir.
Okay. State would offer into evidence States Exhibit 115.
Any objection?
I'll object on the basis that it has no probate value. It's only prejudicial.
Overruled, considered it under Rule 403 and find that it is admissible and for illustrative purposes.
Finally, Mr. Hunt, Dr. Ween has testified. Your fingers on your left hand, your ring and middle finger, what is, as of today, the any lasting effects as far as range of motion or stiffness or numbness?
I can't bring them all the way to a close, sir.
I object to that. I think it goes outside the scope of cross-examination. I didn't ask him about it.
Overruled.
Does the answer stand, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. I have no further questions.
Any recross, Mr. Arbor?
No, no, thank you.
All right, sir, you may step down.
Thank you. I'll take that water with me.
Further evidence for the state?
State would call Detective Smith.
I think it might be some tendencies in veterinary treatment.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Fawcett?
Thank you, Your Honor. State your name for the court, please.
Issa Smith, ISSA, SMITH.
How are you employed, sir?
I'm employed with the Raleigh Police Department as a detective.
How long have you been employed with the Raleigh Police Department?
20 years, 6 months,
How long have you been a detective with the Raleigh Police Department?
for a year and 3 months.
Back on April 22nd, 2013, what was your capacity at the Raleigh Police Department?
I was a detective working in the aggravated assault unit.
Did you have an occasion on that Monday evening to respond to Wake Medical Center in reference to the assault of Ms. Hahn and Mr. Hahn that occurred on Tillwood Place?
Yes, I did.
What were you tasked with doing at the Wake Med, please?
I was tasked in interviewing the male victim at that time, Mr. Hahn.
Okay. Did you get an opportunity to talk to Mr. Hahn?
Yes, I did.
Is this Nation Hahn?
Yes, it is.
And tell us about where this interview took place and what time that Monday.
It was approximately about sometime 6 o'clock or after that evening, and the interview took place in the triage room of the Wake Medical Hospital behind the nurses' station.
Can you describe the layout of the triage room and behind the nurses, what it looks like there at Wake Med, the emergency room?
If you go into the front emergency entrance of the Wake Medical Hospital, you come to some doors, you go through a scanner, then once you go through the doors, you come to a desk where there's probably 2 or 3 people standing there to get your information and see what you need at the hospital. Right directly behind that, there are like small offices behind there where the nurses station is at, and directly behind that is the triage room where there are beds where they put you at until it's time. If you're going to be admitted to go into a room in the hospital.
These individual triage rooms?
Yes, there is. There are curtains to separate each individual one.
And did you have an opportunity to meet and introduce yourself with Nation Hahn at that time?
Yes, I did.
And was he in one of these triage rooms?
Yes, he was.
Was anybody with him?
Nobody was with him at the time.
Describe his appearance, please.
When I approached Mr. Hahn, Mr. Hahn was in a white T-shirt, had a pair of blue gym shorts on. His hands were wrapped in bandages and bleeding at the time.
They were bleeding at the time?
Yes, sir.
Did you introduce yourself?
Yes, I did.
Tell us about your conversation you had with Mr. Hahn there at the triage.
Well, I approached Mr. Hahn. I introduced myself, told him why I was there, and told him I needed to get a statement from him, and proceed to do that.
What did he tell you occurred?
He had told me that he had gotten home a little after 5 p.m. Came home. His wife, Jamie, and Jonathan, his friend, was at the house. He advised me, told me that that Jamie worked from home, and then Jonathan worked with her. Jamie was at the computer desk, and he had told me that Jonathan was in the kitchen. He came in, greeted them both, proceeded to go into the kitchen through a small hallway. He put his computer on the desk. Again, he greeted, said hello to Jonathan, asked him how he was doing. They both hugged each other. He had asked Jonathan, was he planning on staying the night there with him and Jamie? He stated that Jonathan told him that he was. I believe he didn't know, he wasn't sure. However, he had bought some clothes, and Mr. Hahn told me that everything appeared to be fine. At that time, he had told both Jamie and Jonathan that he was going upstairs to change into his gym clothes. He said as he was going up the stairs, he looked and saw Jonathan going towards the office where Jamie was at. He got in the bathroom, so he was in the bathroom on his iPad tweeting. While he was in the bathroom, he was getting ready to get up. He heard hysterical screaming coming from his wife. He called out what, started to pull his pants up. He assumed that something was going on with the dogs. Started to put his pants on, coming down the stairs. Heard her screaming again, yelling out saying no, no, yelling out his name, Mr. Hahn's name, and he called out what again. At that time, he stated that his wife Jamie told him that John is trying to kill me. He was running down the stairs. He came around the corner, and as he came around the corner, when he got down the stairs, he can see Jamie's legs kicking. He couldn't see a whole body because he said there was a wall blocking part of her body, but he saw the legs kicking and saw Jonathan standing over her with a knife. He said as he was going towards where Jonathan was at, Jonathan turned around, looked at him with a crazy look, and started coming towards him. He stated that Jonathan had a butcher knife with a black handle. At that time, he said that Jonathan started slashing at him, cut his hands. He started to struggle with Jonathan with the knife, trying to get the knife from him. Told Jamie to get up, run out the house. At the time, Jamie got up and ran out the house. He still was struggling with Jonathan, and when Jamie was able to get out the house, then that's when he ran out the house.
Did you ask him about why this might have happened, or anything?
I did ask him that. He said he doesn't know why Jonathan would do that to him. He said that Jonathan was best man in his wedding. They had been friends for years. He said Jonathan had told him 2 weeks prior to the incident occurring that night that he was diagnosed with cancer, and Mr. Hahn and Jamie had planned to take Jonathan to Duke Hospital the next day.
How long did you talk to, what did he tell you a little bit more about the defendant, Mr. Broyhill, and Jamie and their business?
Yes, he said that Jonathan worked with Jamie. She hired him. He had worked with her until recently. He had hired Jonathan, or Jamie hired Jonathan in the spring of 2010. They had recently let him go due to not enough business. That was like past December 12th. But he said, Jonathan wasn't angry with Jamie. He understood. He still worked with her, helping out, closing out some things. That he handled the finances for Brad Miller. And he still, like I said, he still stated that he didn't know why he would do this.
You took some handwritten notes of the interview?
Yes, I did.
How long did the interview last in that setting?
I say approximately somewhere between 20 minutes or 25 minutes.
Did he tell you that Jonathan was coming through the kitchen and that Nation greeted them both?
He said that like when he came home, he said Jonathan was coming into the kitchen and Jamie was at the computer desk, and he greeted them both. And when he went through a small hallway into the kitchen, that's where he met Jonathan again and said, spoke to him again, told him hello again.
Mr. Hahn tell you that he walked through a small hallway that opens up to the kitchen?
Yes, that's correct.
That's what he said?
That's what he said.
And sat a computer down on a desk?
On the desk.
Did Eddie, did the doctors, did they come in and treat Mr. Hahn at some point when you were trying to interview him?
Yes, they did. Nurses came to put, I think, look at him, and then when I was almost finished interviewing with him, doctors came to try to render him care. At that time, that's when I ended the interview and gave him my card and advised him that the lead detective will be following up with him at a later date.
To your knowledge, his hands had not been sutured yet or anything by physicians?
No, to my knowledge, no.
How'd you give him your card?
I either placed it on a table that was right in the triage room or on the bed.
That approach your witness, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Identification purposes, States Exhibit 114.
Okay.
Do you recognize what States Exhibit 114 is?
Yes.
What is States Exhibit 114?
This is Mr. Hahn as he appeared at the triage room when I went to interview him.
Who took that picture, if you know?
I believe I took this picture.
Your Honor, the state would often have it States 114 at this time.
And it's allowed.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination, Mr. Earl.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
My name is Joseph Barber. I'm an attorney. I have to ask you some questions about your testimony.
Okay. Yes, sir.
You have not been present through this trial, so I'm going to spare you some of the questions regarding police procedure, but agreed when you do anything involving the case, particularly the detective, you generate a supplement or a report regarding your activity on that case, correct?
That's correct.
And you did in this particular instance, correct?
Yes, sir, I did.
Much of what you just testified to was taken from that supplement so that you could remember what it was that you did in this particular case.
That's correct.
Had you done other things involved in this case, there would likely be supplements that you had generated regarding what you did, correct?
That's correct.
As far as this particular case goes, this involvement on the it was the 22nd,
That's correct.
was your only involvement in this particular case. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Because you had no other reports.
No, sir.
And how did you, I'm just curious the time, you mentioned something about, and I tell this to all the witnesses, if I'm wrong about something, you correct me, okay?
Yes, sir.
Did you say you got there about 6 o'clock to the hospital?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, do you have any idea, if you know, when Mr. Hahn arrived at the hospital prior to your getting there?
No, sir.
All right. Had you gone to the crime scene?
No, sir, I did not.
All right. So when you were dispatched specifically for the purpose of going to the hospital to talk to this victim?
I was dispatched by Detective Cashwell to go to the hospital to assist with the investigation. When I got there and was debriefed by Sergeant Cashwell, that's when he told me to talk to the victim.
Detective Cashwell was the head of the homicide unit at the time,
Yes, sir, he was.
or of Unit 1,
Yes, sir.
or I don't know, or maybe he was the head of all the units, I don't know.
He's Unit 1.
Okay. How did you remember that 6 o'clock time? Because I didn't see in your supplement. Did you put it in a handwritten note or something?
No, I remember it by looking at my my iPhone at the time. I know the call came in about 5:19, and by that time we got out there. I looked at to see what time I arrived, and it was about that time, 6 o'clock.
And that would be about logical from wherever you departed from to get there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the duration of the time, I think you said maybe 20 to 25 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Before, I think you said medical personnel started to attend to Mr. Hahn.
That's correct.
Was that an estimate, or did you make note of it somewhere?
That's an estimate, sir.
Okay. And just so I'm clear, you're, what was it, a year and 3 months is that in homicide?
I'm a year and 3 months in homicide.
But you've been a detective longer than that.
I've been a detective longer than that, correct?
Yeah. How long have you been a detective?
I would say going on 4 years now.
Yeah. So this was 2 years ago. So you had a couple of years' experience as a detective, and you'd been an officer prior to that.
Yes, sir.
So you're familiar, like all the other ones, with reporting and training and how to do reports and all that stuff.
Correct, sir.
And 2 years in on the job as a detective, you knew that one of the things you would have to ask Mr. Hahn that day was, can you give us an explanation for why this would have happened, right?
Correct.
And you did do that.
Yes, sir.
He really didn't have one, did he?
What he told me was he didn't know why. He didn't understand why Jonathan would do this to us. That was his answer.
He did talk about, when I say he, I meant Mr. Hahn. He did talk about, he did identified, well, just so I'm clear, you had not met the defendant in this case, correct?
No, sir.
All right. So no one was asking you to make any kind of identification or anything of that kind?
No,
You
sir.
were just talking to Mr. Hahn.
Correct.
But he said the person who had did this was the best man at his wedding.
Correct.
Sort of identified him to you as sort of his best friend, right?
Yes, sir.
He told you about how he'd known him a long time, and he told you about when you were asking him, why do you think this might have happened? He said, well, I don't know, he just recently got diagnosed with cancer, right?
Correct.
Thought maybe that had something to do with it. He told you about the work that he did for his wife, Mrs. Hahn. Now, I'm assuming when you got the dispatch, you knew that Ms. Hahn had been attacked as well, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, you're not going out there cold. Someone's giving you a call and letting you know a little background so that you know
Well,
it.
I received what was going on when I got to the hospital, and again, I met with Sergeant Cashwell, and again, he briefed me and told me that the suspect had assaulted a husband and wife with a knife at the address in their residence.
And so, and he said, go interview him and see what you can find out.
He said, "Go talk." I was tasked with going and speak with the male victim.
Yeah,
There was another detective, Dr. Karlinski, that was there, who I believe was tasked to go speak with Mr. Hahn's wife.
yeah, that, and to the best of your knowledge, that didn't result in anything, correct?
To the best of my knowledge, no, sir, at the time.
When you, and so when you went over there, that's what you were going over for, to go see if you can find out some information about the event and why it happened and give us some particulars, correct?
Correct, sir.
Which is what's in your supplement.
Correct, sir.
You know, like other officers, the importance of, if there's an important piece of information, to include it in the supplement.
That's correct.
you mentioned about, as to the why it happened, that Mr. Hahn shared with you that his friend Jonathan worked for his wife and had handled the finance books for the Brad Miller, correct?
Correct.
If he had mentioned to you at that meeting something about anything, about having discovered that Mr. Broyhill, the suspect, had taken money from the Brad Miller account, that would have been something you would have written in your report, isn't it?
Yes, it would have.
There is nothing like that in your report, is
No,
there?
sir, it's not.
And you spent 20 to 25 minutes with this man. I realize it's an estimate, but that's your best recollection.
Yes, sir, it is.
That never came up in the conversation. Correct?
No, sir.
Because if it had, you would have written it down.
Yes, sir.
And you, before you got into the why, and this is typical protocol, you asked them to tell you what happened,
Correct.
and you had him walk you through it.
I had him telling me exactly what happened. Tell me what happened, and he went through it.
He's seen the picture. He's in the hospital gurney, and he's bandaged up in the hands, correct?
Correct.
And he's bleeding.
Correct.
This is not just a tell me what happened and just let him go free for all. I mean, if he wants to, he can. But I mean, you're asking questions along the way.
Well, I told him to start telling me what happened and let him tell me what happened. Again, during that time, he had stopped a couple of times. We jumped to one subject. If you see it by my notes, we may jump to something else without underlining it and do not try to get him back to, again, explain me what happened. Because at that time, he was very emotional at the time.
Right. And so, and by that I mean when you're doing an interview, can't always count on. Part of these the reason you do these reports so you can remember what was said at the interview. Right?
Correct, sir.
All right. You can't always remember exactly. You know, he turned and got a glass of water. If it was important to you, you'd write it down. But you're not going to remember every little thing like that, right? Like,
Everything that I put down in notes was what he was giving me that was important, that I felt that they needed for this investigation.
exactly. And by that I mean when you're going through the what happened, if you needed clarification about something, like if he's telling you something, you needed, like if he was saying, for example, he talked about a room or something, you might say, well, what room or what were you doing? You'd ask him about it, and then
Right.
you include it in your supplement.
Yes, sir.
When he was telling you about going upstairs
Yes, sir.
after arriving at home, he told you he went to go use the bathroom, right?
He told me he was going upstairs, that he had told him he was going upstairs to change, go to the gym. He told me that he was in the bathroom on his iPad tweeting.
And using the bathroom.
I assumed that he was using the bathroom if he was on his iPad tweeting.
That's what you, when you wrote that down, that was the assumption of what you were writing.
Yes, sir. I didn't ask him what he was doing in the bathroom. I took assume that he was in his bathroom.
I understand, but you wrote it down because you included it in the supplement.
Right.
I mean, you didn't just say you went into the bathroom. You wrote in your supplement, I was using the bathroom while I was on my iPad tweeting.
Correct.
And you felt that was important, so you included it in the report.
Correct.
You asked him when he started to hear yelling, correct?
Right.
He told you it was when he was getting ready to stand up that he started to hear screaming from his wife, correct?
That's correct.
I don't want to put words in your mouth. I assume by you writing that in, you assumed he was done using the bathroom at that point.
I assumed that, yes, sir.
That's why you wrote it in. Now, you're familiar with, you've been a lead detective on some cases too, right?
Yes, I have.
And you even mentioned something about that in your direct. You know that at some point, particularly this is a homicide case.
Yes, sir.
You weren't homicide then.
No, sir, I was not.
But you are now.
Yes, sir.
And you know there's this. You guys aren't done that day. There's going to be a lot of follow-up interviews, right?
That's correct.
The reason they do that is because people, as time goes by, remember additional stuff, and you want to get that information when they remember it, right?
That's correct.
When you were getting this statement, this is 20 to 25 minutes, sometime around 6 o'clock in the evening on an event that happened maybe 40 minutes prior to that. Is that fair?
So that's fair.
You just give me one moment.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Detective Smith, I don't have any other questions.
Okay, sir.
Did Nation Hahn tell you how many times Jonathan Broyhill slashed at him with the knife?
He said several times.
Thank you. No more questions.
Anything further, Mr. Earl?
No, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Further evidence for the state?
Yes, Your Honor. The state would call Detective Morse to the stand.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I will.
Thank you.
Here, Mr. Fawcett.
Thank you. State your name for the court, please.
Zeke Morse, Zekemorse.
All right. How are you employed?
I am a detective with the Raleigh Police Department.
Detective Morse, how long have you been a detective of the Raleigh Police Department?
19 and a half years now.
And how long have you been employed of the Raleigh Police Department?
19 and a half years.
Were you a detective? Did you start as a detective?
No, sir.
Am I confused?
When I started my career, I was a patrol officer for the first 9 years.
Okay. And you are the assigned lead detective here in the Jamie Hahn, Nation Hahn matter?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's cut to April 22nd, 2013. Did you respond to the Hahn residence there on Tillwood Place?
I did.
About what time did you get there?
About 6:30 p.m.
Okay. Was defendant present when you got there?
No, sir.
Okay. Everyone been taken to the hospital?
Correct.
If we could, can we publish State's Exhibit 38 on the TV? State's Exhibit 38 on the TV.
I'm sorry, the overhead?
On the TV, State's Exhibit 38.
That's fine, yes, sir.
Judge, if there comes a point where I need to reposition, just do it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Feel free to do so.
All right, State's Exhibit 38 is in evidence. Can you identify in this photo what we're looking at?
This is a photo from inside 1705 Tealwood, the Hans residence. This photo is taken from standing in the living room, looking through the living room into the kitchen.
Did you at some time did you participate in the execution of the search warrant at the Hans residence that night?
I did.
Do you recall the CCBI agent or agents there also?
Yes, Agent Johnson and Agent Hill.
Did you at some point identify and see some evidence yourself?
Yes, sir.
What was that?
One in particular was that black backpack that's
Yes,
on
if
top
you
of the
would.
stool right here.
All right. A black backpack that's sitting on the stool there in the living room.
Correct.
Did you tell us about it? Did you examine the backpack before you seized it as it's sitting there on the stool?
It was examined beforehand, yes, sir.
Okay. Tell us about. Could you describe the backpack, what it looks like, and what, if anything, noteworthy from your point of view that you identified?
It is a standard backpack. It has 3 pockets, 1 main compartment, and then 2 smaller pockets on the front of the backpack itself. Inside the backpack was mail and so forth, addressed to Jonathan Broyhill.
Was it, you accessed the different compartments?
Through 3 zipper compartments.
Compartments. All right. Did you identify anything inside the backpack that evening noteworthy as to this assault allegation?
Not that evening, no, sir.
Okay. Did you seize the backpack collectively?
We did.
Okay. At some point later, did you find something in the backpack?
I did.
Okay. Tell us what that was.
At a later date, examined the contents of that backpack more thoroughly, and I located the packaging to an Oneida chef's knife.
Let me show you what's marked as State Exhibit 91.
Yes, sir.
Recognize what that is?
I do.
What is that?
This is the Raleigh Police evidence envelope that contains that knife packaging.
Could you open up your envelope, please, and State Exhibit 91? I continue with that.
Yes.
And let me now sticker State's Exhibit 91A. Do you recognize what State's Exhibit 91A is?
Yes, sir.
What is State's Exhibit 91A?
It is that Oneida chef's knife packaging that I recovered from that backpack.
Is State's Exhibit 91A in the same condition as it was when you seized it from the backpack early on in your investigation?
Yes, sir.
Nothing's been tampered with or materially altered from State's Exhibit 91A?
No, sir.
Now, at this time, the state would offer into evidence State's Exhibit 91 and 91A.
Any objection? Allowed.
The status of the backpack today, can you kind of generally describe the inside of it, what was in it?
Inside the backpack was several pieces of mail, bank statements, and so forth, addressed to Jonathan Broyhill. There was a short-sleeve black T-shirt with a faded silver grayish design on the front. So faded, I can't even tell you what it is. Pair of tan cargo shorts, a phone charger, a chocolate bar. There were 2 or 3 starter checkbooks for the Brad Miller campaign, various receipts, and other pieces of mail.
Chocolate bar today, what's the inside of the bag? At least one of the compartments looks like.
Melted.
Okay. The State's Exhibit 91A, were you able to do some follow-up with State's Exhibit 91A?
I was.
Okay. And tell us about a UPC code and what you did with State's Exhibit 91A, please.
On the back of the packaging is the UPC code, that barcode that identifies it by its as an individual item. And I was able to take that UPC code and speak with representatives of Harris Teeter to research the sales of this knife.
Okay. Actually identifies State's Exhibit 97. You recognize what State's Exhibit 97?
I do.
What is State's Exhibit 97?
It's a Wells Fargo Visa debit card issued to Jonathan Broyhill.
And where did State's Exhibit 97 come from?
It came from Mr. Broyhill's wallet, which was taken into evidence the night at the hospital.
All right. Approach the clerk, Your Honor.
Yes.
State's Exhibit 97.
States Exhibit 87 has the last four digits of a credit card, correct? And that is the same as Mr. Broyhill's credit card, 2670.
Has all the digits. We don't need to read them out, but is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And as to State's Exhibit 91A, the 8-inch media chef's knife packaging. The UPC code at the bottom on State's Exhibit 91A, could you read that out, please?
7675305458.
All right. State's Exhibit 86, the Harris Teeter record, there's a UPC number mentioned for an April 14th purchase. Is that the same number that you just read out from State's Exhibit 91A?
Yes, sir, it is.
The state offered it on State's Exhibit 97, credit card.
All right, it's allowed.
Let me show you what's marked with State's Exhibit 117. Do you recognize what State's Exhibit 117 is?
I do.
What is State's Exhibit 117?
It's a photograph that I had taken at Harris Teeter, showing the kitchenwares display where that knife was hanging.
And specifically, did you identify what Harris Teeter store number 344 was?
I did.
What Harris Teeter store is 344?
It is the one on Falls of Noose Road at Spring Forest Road.
All right. Is State's Exhibit 117 the display of various knives located at that particular Harris Teeter?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did you actually take picture 117?
I did.
All right. Generally, about what time, what date did you take this picture?
I can't recall right off the top of my head.
Okay.
It was sometime after the fact, obviously.
Right. More, it's somewhere in the minutes.
Correct. I'd made 2 trips to the Harris Teeter. Correct.
Let me ask you about these 2 pictures.
This was the earlier trip.
State's Exhibit 118 and State's Exhibit 119. Do you recognize those 2 photos?
I do.
What are the State's Exhibit 118 and State's Exhibit 119?
These are 2 additional photos that I had taken more recently.
Okay. Were State's Exhibit 118 and 119 photos taken this year, calendar year?
Yes, sir.
And are they exactly what are they? The close-up view of?
They're a close-up view of the knife itself, the packaging, and the UPC code.
And is the UPC code in State's Exhibit 118, 119 the same UPC code as what's already in the evidence, State's Exhibit 91A?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. In State's Exhibit 117, the display.
Correct.
What year was that taken?
That was taken in 2013.
Right, okay. Your Honor, the state would offer into evidence State's Exhibit 117, 118, and 119.
Any objection? All right, they're allowed for illustrative purposes.
Let me ask you, let me direct you to your interview of Jonathan Broyhill on April 26, 2013, that Friday. Did you ask the defendant, Mr. Broyhill, on that Friday, April 26 interview, why he purchased this knife?
I did.
What did he tell you?
He told me he was having a down day and he was not thinking clearly.
What time did your investigation determine that the knife was purchased on that Sunday, April 14th, 2013?
At 7:40 p.m.
During your interview of the defendant on Friday, April 26, did the defendant share with you that he was minutes away from meeting with Jamie Hahn at her residence before he purchased that knife?
No, sir.
How far away is the Hahn residence on Tillwood Place from the Spring Forest Harris Teeter that this knife was purchased at on Sunday, the 14th?
It is less than 2 miles.
Based on your investigation of the records of Harris Teeter, did the defendant purchase anything else at that shopping excursion?
No, sir.
The clothes you mentioned that were identified from the backpack that are pictured in State's Exhibit 38, did you locate any underwear, socks, or shoes?
No, sir.
Okay. What type of clothes, if you know, was Jonathan Broyhill wearing when he was taken into custody that afternoon and evening of April 22nd, 2013?
It was a pair of Lucky Brand blue jeans, a pair of brown loafers, a blue and green multicolored Ralph Lauren polo buttoned short sleeve shirt, as well as his undergarments.
Did you participate or look at the defendant's Volvo car that was located outside the Tillwood residence on April 22nd that evening?
Yes, sir.
Did you recall noting, were there any hanging clothes in the car?
No, sir, there was not.
Did you notice any other clothes or evidence of clothes in Mr. Broyhill's Volvo car that evening?
Not that I recall.
At some point, was the trunk of the Volvo car searched?
It was.
Okay. Do you recall anything else about any type of change of clothes in the Volvo?
Not that I recall, sir.
Let me ask you to take a more the defendant on Friday, April 26th, did you ask Mr. Broyhill if there was anything else he had lied to Jamie and Nation about other than, I think the quote was money and illnesses?
No, he thought that was it.
Okay. Did you ask him that question in that area?
I did.
Okay. And what did he tell you?
He said no, he didn't think so, that was it.
All right, this time the state would offer by stipulation, States Exhibit 89, identified as a lab four letter, States Exhibit 89.
All right, again, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, a stipulation is simply an agreement among counsel that this exhibit can be received without further authentication, and that it is admissible.
In your investigation after the defendant's April 26 interview, were you able to contact a Wendy Weeks at LabCorp?
Yes, sir.
What was the purpose of contacting Ms. Weeks at LabCorp?
I was checking on Mr. Broyhill's employment status there,
And what did you determine?
that he has never been an employee at LabCorp.
This time the state would offer into evidence by stipulation, States Exhibit 103, identified as Wells Fargo bank records of Mr. Gordon.
All right, so they are allowed as well.
Morris, let me show you States Exhibit 103, identified as Wells Fargo checking account records from March 27th, 2013 through April 24th, 2013 of Jonathan Broyhill. Were you aware at some point, as to the LabCorp, the nature of the LabCorp and losing the job and going to the beach?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Looking at the defense, Wells Fargo bank records, were you able to determine or note any transactions that occurred between April 11th and Sunday the 14th of 2013?
Yes, sir.
And were any transactions identified occurring at the coast or anything at the beach?
No, sir.
Anything local here?
Yes, sir.
Just generally, what did the bank records there show you?
Oh, which specific day?
Between Thursday, April the 11th, to Sunday, the 14th, were there transactions occurring in Raleigh throughout that time period?
There were several, yes, sir. Handy Hugo's on the 12th. Little Caesars is on the 12th. Brookside Market on the 12th. Arby's on the 12th. Food Line on the 13th. Little Caesars on the 13th. And those were all Raleigh locations.
Let me, thank you, Detective Morris. Are you aware of the, can I approach the clerk again?
Yes, sir.
Detective Morse, the time frame of the embezzlement matter. Let me show you State's Exhibit 9. It's in there. Are you aware of the number of checks identified on the Brad Miller account that were written by the defendant to himself, and the time frame of those checks and the total?
Yes, sir.
And what was that time frame and total of checks written on the Brad Miller account made payable to Jonathan Broyhill from Jonathan Broyhill?
Between the period of June 2011 through March of 2013, there were 39 checks totaling more than $46,500.
Right. In your Friday, April 26, 2013 interview of the defendant, did you ask Mr. Broyhill what he was spending the money on?
I did.
What did he, initially, what did he tell you at that time?
Food, clothing, nothing lavish, just frivolous stuff.
Frivolous stuff. Later in that April 26, 2013 interview, did you inquire about the Volvo?
Yes, sir.
All right. What did you ask him in that April 26 interview about the Volvo, and what did he tell you?
I asked him how he paid for the car, and he told me he paid cash.
Did you inquire further about where the cash came from?
Yes, sir.
What did the defendant tell you on April 26?
It came from the Brad Miller checking account.
Did Mr. Broyhill on April 26 interview tell you why he needed that car?
He did.
What did he tell you at that time?
That his previous car had been stolen.
Were you at some time later able to go and check out to see if there was a stolen car report of Mr. Broyhill's?
I was.
Okay. Did you determine the date of a theft report of the car?
That would have been on October 15th, 2011.
All right. October 15th, 2011.
Yes, sir.
How much money is reflected that 1 month after that reported theft, how much money is reflected that the defendant made checks on the Brad Miller account, issued checks to himself? In the 1 month after that reported theft of the car, what's the total amount of money of checks?
Right. It's more than 15,000.
Okay.
Second, take you a few moments. Birds. Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Morris, let me show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 95. Do you recognize what State's Exhibit 95 is?
I do.
What is State's Exhibit 95?
It is a DVD that I created. It contains what we refer to as phone dumps or device dumps. I've initialed it. It's got the unique case number for this case, and it contains the phone dumps from 2 iPads and an iPhone that belong to Mr. Broyhill, as well as the phone dumps from the iPhone belonging to Mrs. Hahn.
The 2 iPads belong to the defendant. One was located where?
One was located at his residence on Glasscock Street. The other was located in his vehicle.
The Volvo.
Yes, sir.
Then the defendant's iPhone was located where?
That is located on the kitchen table, which was at the Hahn's residence.
On a legal pad, a blank legal pad on the kitchen table there.
Yes, sir.
And the 4th phone, the iPhone, belonged to Jamie Hahn. Is it pictured on the desk in her office that evening?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Your Honor, this time the state would, by stipulation, offer into evidence State's Exhibit 95, the data extractions from those 4 devices.
Any objection?
No, it's stipulated.
They are allowed.
May I approach the witness?
Yes.
Detective Morris, let me show you State's Exhibit 90, which is a notebook, and then inside, individual pages are labeled 90 with the letter A, 90B, 90C, all the way through 90 double B. So referring collectively to State's Exhibit 90, do you recognize what State's Exhibit 90 was?
I do.
What is State's Exhibit 90?
It is a collection of various communications derived from those 4 devices.
Okay. And what is UTC time?
UTC time is a universal time continuum. It is the time zone in which all other time zones are measured from.
And these various electronic communications in State's Exhibit 90, starting with 90A in front of you, April 22nd, 2013, 8:07.35 p.m. UTC time. What time would that be Eastern time then?
We would subtract 4 hours, so that'd be 4:07 p.m.
In the afternoon.
Correct.
So you take off 4 hours on every time where there's a UTC time, which is everyone in State's Exhibit 90.
Yes, sir.
And just generally, the various authors of these communications, or what parties are involved here in the various electronic communications in State's Exhibit 90?
Jamie Hahn, Nation Hahn, and Mr. Broyhill.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, the state would offer into evidence State's Exhibit 90 and all the subsections of it contained in the notebook.
Any objection? Let's do this. Let's go ahead and break for lunch at this time. Give Mr. Arbor opportunity to review this material, and then we'll just simply resume at 2 o'clock. So an hour and a half from now, if you'll return, ladies and gentlemen, to the jury room at 2 o'clock. Recall the instructions. Don't talk among yourselves or with anyone else about the case. Don't form or express opinions about the outcome. No media or independent investigation about these matters, and please have no conversation or communication with parties, witnesses, or lawyers. Leave your notepads in your chairs as well as all the papers that you've been provided. I believe we'll be collecting those papers except for your notebooks later on. And everyone please remain seated while the jurors excuse themselves. Presence of the jury, any matters that we need to take up?
Not from the state, no.
2 o'clock.